researching is, well, what is the root of this Arab-Israeli conflict, and what did Rav Kook have to say about it? He was involved in it in a certain way, right from the beginning. And so when was the beginning is one question. Well, we know that Islam for a long time, but the modern, I tried to find the earliest reference was in this book called Jerusalem 1913. You may not be able to see Jerusalem 1913, The Origins of the Arab-Israeli Conflict. Now, the original origins are, of course, because Islam came to replace Judaism, and the fact that Jews are coming back to Israel, Islam can't really live with that. But in terms of how this played itself out politically, so it's traced page 43. One of the earliest references I could find was in 1891. 500 representatives of the leading Arab families in this area, and it was during the Ottoman Empire. 500 families started to urge the Sultan to start restricting Jewish immigration, and they signed a petition in 1891 asking the Sultan to stop Jews from purchasing land there, and they made it more difficult to immigrate. So that was 1891. So it's already in place. Then a few pages later, he talks about
and sorry, Rabbi. In 1891, what was there? 10,000 Jews in Israel?
Right? I think more. They may have. I actually think by 1891 there was a majority of Jews in Jerusalem. Somebody should double check that. But I saw something. I was looking at that a little while ago. It was already by that time. It was in this very same book, I think, but I don't have the number in my head. But ask your phone and let us know. But in every case, in 1898, the mayor of Jerusalem, Khalidi, was his name. He sent a letter to his acquaintance, the chief rabbi of Paris, who had ties to Herzl, and he said to them, he said, you really don't consider, he tried to persuade that Herzl could be persuaded to find another, this is 2 years, 1896 is, I guess, when Herzl got famous. So, right? Something like that. So then,
Rabbi, so it says, sorry, but so it says that 43% were Jews, and that represented about 532,000 Jews in Israel in 1890.
So the sum total of Jews was how many?
It says, no, that can't. I don't know about the percentage. Forget it. But it says 532,000.
That's a lot.
I don't know that. Maybe Google's wrong. Sorry. Let's not pay attention to that. Sorry, go ahead.
The mayor already sent a letter to the chief rabbi of Paris saying that the Herzl Zionists should be persuaded to find another place besides Palestine in which to settle the Jews. So that in 1898 sort of came out as a statement. And then it seems in 1913 in Rehovot, there was a double murder something happened, and that may have been, and I think a Jew in defense killed an Arab, and then Arabs killed some Jews, and that might have been the first violent act of that sort, and that's dated till 1913 in Rehovot. Now, I saw something really interesting in Notebook 1 that Rav Kook wrote perhaps in 1906, 1907, shortly after he arrived in Israel. He wrote this. He wrote this, well, just this passage, which again, the machine, I've been able to get the machine to translate quite a bit today. So let's see. All right. This is what he wrote. לממשלה הטורקית, to the Turkish government, יש להוציא אל הפועל הבנה היסטורית. They really need, the Turkish government needs to manifest, to bring into actuality, a historical understanding, שהיא יכולה לקנות לה מקום גדול במערכת האנושית, through which it will be able to acquire for itself a place of greatness, a great place, a place of greatness in humanity, al yedei Israel, through Israel. Teva im Israel hu liot makir tov lemetivav. The nature of Israel is to recognize the good in those that do good, to recognize the good to the ones that do good to Israel. Now, this is particularly poignant now because everybody's saying, we were talking about this, the next enemy is Turkey. Turkey is now, theoretically, if we, once Iran, the next enemy is Turkey. Here he's addressing the Ottoman Empire, Turkey under the Sultan, and he's saying, you are in a position now where you can bring forth a historical understanding that you'll find, you'll establish your greatness in history. The nature of Israel is to recognize the good in those who do good to Israel. Me'olam lo asara. Israel has never historically done bad. Lemisha asalo tova mibnei adam. To those who have done good to it in humanity. Anyone who's done good to us, we remember it forever and we don't do bad for them. Im kain, and if that's the way it is, im tityaches ha'uma ha'tugramit yafel Israel. If that's the way it is, so then if the Turgeman, so that the Turgeman Empire they were called, was that the series of the sultans were the Turgemans? But it's if the Turgeman nation, I guess that's another word for Turkish. If the Turkish nation treats Israel yafeh, well, behachnasatam le'eretz Israel, in the process of now Israelites entering into the land of Israel, and it was still under the control of the Turks here. This was before the British or anything. Laten lahem zchuyot yafot mechubadot, to give the Jews, the Israelites, honorable rights, to give them rights, allow them to come in and give them rights. Then, yeh ha'am karut brit ima. Then we will be in a situation of making, oh, I lost the piece here. Here it is. We will be making a brit, a covenant with you. Ukesheyarum keren Israel, and when the crown of Israel will rise, this covenant that now Turkey you can make with Israel, Yela lemagen oz, will be a powerful shield, ulemachase gadol, and a great cover, protection, mi oivav harabim shel ha'am Turkey, from the many enemies that the Turkish people have. Do they have many enemies? I guess they've been in war. Anybody know much about Turkish history? But I guess everybody was fighting everybody. Levad, you know what? Let's go to the translation of this so far.
This is before World War One, right?
It's before World, yeah, 1909.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? I mean, obviously they made the wrong choice in that war, who they aligned themselves with. Yeah, so that's interesting.
So here's the translation. The Turkish Empire government must actualize a historical understanding so that it can acquire a great place in the human arena through Israel. The nature of the people of Israel is to be grateful to its benefactors. It's never done evil to any human being who has done it good. And therefore, if the Ottoman nation conducts itself well towards Israel regarding their admission to the land of Israel, granting them fine and honorable rights, the people of Israel will be bound in a covenant with it, with the Ottoman nation. And when the stature of Israel rises and it becomes the most powerful nation on the world, it will serve as a strong shield and a great refuge for the Turkish government from the many enemies of the Turkish people. Let's go back to Levad hatovot haruchaniyot hagdolot. In addition to the great spiritual benefits, מצורף למה שמביט ישראל ביין יפה על הדת הטורקית, that's attached in that Israel sees in a good way the Turkish religion, Islam, she'ein ba shemetz shel avodah zarah. It doesn't have any trace of idolatry, while Christianity still does. They're saying the kiruv shel mitzvot milan, you do the circumcision, isur chazir, and you don't eat pig. Yesh la gam ken erech chashuv. There's something significant, important to this. Keshemitkarvim kiruv politi. Here he is a political strategizing. He's saying when they come close politically, Israel and Turkey, mitrashem roshem shel ahava, they'll have love with each other. It'll express itself politically. Ad shehem yecholim liot be'emet harishonim, to the point that the Turks can actually, in reality, be the very first ones, lehitromemut, to raise up, she'atid ha'olam liot mitromem al yedei Israel, to participate in the raising up of the world that will be raised up through Israel. By allowing Israel to come back, they'll participate in the elevation of the world that Israel will contribute. And has been, let's just read that. And aside from the great spiritual benefits, there is the additional fact that Israel views the Turkish religion favorably. It contains no trace of idolatries. We have the commonalities of circumcision, prohibition of pork, because they do it at 13 years old. Because that's Ishmael was 13 years old when he got circumcised. So, ouch. I don't think religiously they do it. I think they do it younger. Anybody know? Ask your phone. So when a political alliance is formed in the future, an impression of love is made to the point that Turkey, could truly be the first to experience the elevation. Oh, they'll be the first to benefit from it. Not only that, the whole world, but they'll be the first ones to rise along with it. They could truly be the first to experience the elevation that the world is destined to undergo through Israel, because of Israel's return. And to be very clear, he's and Israel's doing this in many ways, but the point being, we need to show people how to live peacefully and well together, and share that with others, and become a model for holiness rather than anything else, and goodness. And that's the destiny of Israel, is to bring that behavior to the world, and the elimination of anybody who's stopping that. So he continues. He goes now historically. הסברים כאלה בהרחבה ושפה ברורה, יש בה מעין השתדלות של נחמיה בבית שני. Explanations like this, when they're expanded and spoken clearly, it's similar to the efforts that Nehemiah made in the Second Temple. Does somebody know? I didn't have a chance to. Let's go. Let's see what did Nehemiah. What did Nehemiah try to do in the Second Temple? Restoring social. Okay. He was restoring Jerusalem walls and restoring social and religious order, and he was appointed as by the Persians. That's what the Second Temple, Nehemiah, in the early Second Temple period, he was appointed by the Persians, and he oversaw 50-day reconstruction of the city's defenses, implemented reforms against economic injustice, Shabbat, ended intermarriage. That's, in every case, but the point being, Nehemiah was appointed by the Persians to do this. And it's a similar thing now if the Turks appoint the Zionists to run Israel. So this is containing, what we're doing now is containing something of the advocacy of Nehemiah during the Second Temple. And we can find no reason to oppose this, or even to slacken our efforts in times of trouble. Yeshua with us, and we need to make this happen. So that's the letter he wrote to the Turks. It's, obviously, they didn't take up his advice on it. And then I did some research, and I found an article that Israeli historian wrote about Rav Kook's attitude towards Arabs and all that. And rather than, I think it's worth reading through. I got the Hebrew, and then I got it translated into English. And let's just read, because it's a good overview that the stuff we'll be reading in the next couple of days, because I want to focus in on the Arab-Israeli conflict, and it's because before Yom Ha'atzmaut, because that's the story of our century. And in this piece, what happened to it? Sorry. I may have Yeah, I changed the page. Sorry, I just lost the screen for a minute, and I just have to find. All right, there it is. And this is the article was written 5 years ago. So it's now 90 years. 85 years has passed since the passing of Rav Kook, one of the spiritual giants. During this time, many people in countless situations, hundreds of thousands, who continued to see him a teacher, a spiritual shepherd, myself included, asked, well, what would Rav Kook have said? And his students, they've said what his teachings have been on every matter. And naturally, there is one area of the central, the Jewish-Arab relations. Now, this is what he found. As strange as it may seem, Rav Kook dealt relatively little with this field. The hundreds of books, papers, doctorates written about him as a rabbi, thinker, philosopher, poet, they lack a structured doctrine about the central matter of Jews and Arabs. And the reason for this is simple. The chief Ashkenazi rabbi, the founder of the chief rabbis of the rabbinate, one of the leaders of religious Zionism, did deal sparingly with Jewish-Arab relations in the land of Israel, but he passed away 13 years before the state was established, and only 6 years after the Jewish-Arab clash of 1929 riots, though the first pogroms were in 1920, so they were already there, and we'll look at that more tomorrow. But and therefore, so one of the researchers said, Dr. Yossi Avneri, that Rav Kook didn't establish a structured doctrine regarding the Arabs, and his references were incidental. And generally, when he did, he moved between a principled position that Jews are the sole legal owners of the land by virtue of the divine connection between the people of Israel and the land of Israel. That's clear. There's no question about that, as well as a very respectful, cautious, and balanced attitude towards both the individual and the Arab nation. He also rejected the contentious nature that the dispute with the Arabs often took, even at the beginning of the last century. More than once, he tried to moderate it. And we'll see at some point, he may quote it here. He wrote letters against people that were writing newspapers that were putting out extremist articles, that were not allowed to put all the Arabs in the same category, that sort of stuff. He wrote. He did this both by setting a personal example in his connections and his relations with Arabs, directly and openly in letters, and which many of them are preserved at the Rav Kook house, copy of them. A first such documented event at the late Ottoman period, seemingly minor, the journal Ivri, the Hebrew, reported in 1912 about guards, I guess Jewish guards in the Galilee who lay in wait for Arabs to come to uproot orchard trees. And when the Arabs were discovered, Ha'ivri in 1912 described how the Yehuda, the orchard guard, called out to his fellow guards, in the name of our people, B'Shem Amenu, B'Shem Artsenu, upon the enemies, strike, brothers, do not pity. And then one of the other Galilean guards said, remember the torture of the Jews from the destruction until today. Rav Kook did not like the style of these words. In a rebuking letter to Rav Meir Bar Ilan, the editor of Ivri, he remarked on the style of the things, noting that the mental state of hostility towards the Arabs that is described there, and the awakening of the Hebrew guards in these words full of, might be an artificial revolutionary spirit, but that sort of talk, which is not according to our aspiration, and it's not appropriate to the situation at all. The calls of, upon the enemy, let's get the enemy. Rav Kook explained, when these calls come in a Hebrew newspaper, a Hebrew organ, but a Hebrew newspaper against the Arabs, there is no end to how much poison it can generate and how much material it will be, in the hands of our enemies, Arab enemies. There are enemies, and they'll look for anything we do to use against us, who scan every syllable coming from us to pry it into it in order to find political pretexts against the whole of Israel. Do you understand how he's describing exactly what they've been doing for 100 years? So he's saying, don't speak that way about Arabs. They'll just use it against us. Do not give space in your exalted newspapers to such things as these. Their benefit is zero. Their damage is unfathomably great. 8 years after the publication of this in 1912, there was the riots of 1920. See, this is way before 1929. They broke out in Jerusalem, and Rav Kook stood. There was Arabs killing Jews. And I guess some Jews may have fought back. I'm not sure. If somebody feel free to ask your phone, 1920. But Jabotinsky set up Hashomer and all that to protect them. Rav Kook supported Jabotinsky, who organized groups to defend the Jewish public. But in the eulogy that Rav Kook delivered for the victims of the riots, he was careful to avoid negative generalizations regarding the Arabs and even avoided emphasizing their nationality. In the eulogy that he that's pretty amazing. At that time, I'm trying to find that particular eulogy. Write a note here. Eulogy, the 1920 riots. At that time, Rav Kook hung the blame on the acts of the deeds of human savages and wicked savages. And even in a letter to the Prime Minister of England, he did not deviate. He did not deviate from a commission of inquiry and immediate punishment for the criminal hooligans, without mentioning their nationality. He didn't make it that they're Arabs, they're doing these criminal things. The riots of 1921, because 1920, 21, and then 29, there may have been some other things in between, but those are the main ones that are recorded. In the riots of 21 spread wider and they claimed more victims. Now Rav Kook was starting to get convinced that this was a trend to destroy the Jews of all the land of Israel. And from that time, the Dr. Rabbi of Neri believes, Rav Kook's hopes with the dialogue with the Arabs diminished. And he understood there were conflicting national interests that could not be easily settled. And it's also at this time that the Mufti is in power. The Mufti became Mufti in 1920, 1921. And all the enemies of Israel today are the Mufti students. So we'll go into the Mufti more tomorrow, But at that point, that's when it got poisoned to the point that it is now, because the Mufti, he made it very clear. From now on, the main Arab commitment is to stop Israel from returning. And Rav Kook got the message that it's not. And then it says, during that same decade, we're talking about 1920 to 1930, Rav Kook dealt exclusively with two places whose history will later shape the nature of the Jewish-Arab conflict and escalate it. There was the issue of the Western Wall, where the Arabs and the British made life miserable for Jewish prisoners, worshippers, shaming them, harassing them, restricting their prayer rights. There were certain rights that they could go, and even the little rights they had, once the Mufti was that, he tried to stop Jews from davening there, and the British basically supported the Mufti. Rav Kook worked extensively towards purchasing a narrow Western Wall alleyway. He didn't succeed. And also in Hebron, he acted vigorously to purchase and settle ancient Hebron with Jews. He sent people to Hebron. In the month of 1922, Rav Kook published a letter in which he sharply attacked the neglect of settling Hebron. Those days were relatively calm in Jewish-Arab relations, and Rav Kook was optimistic, as he held sources testifying, the Arabs inhabiting Hebron in general are gentle and quiet people, and many of them recognize the blessing destined to come upon the Holy Land for all its inhabitants through the increase of the Jewish settlement within it. And it was basically true. But then, the bad guys became the leaders and so forth. Rav Kook estimated that when the Arabs of Hebron noticed the benefit that could be derived from their Jewish neighbors, they'll be added to our friends from our neighbors inhabiting the land. In today's terms, this is considered naive, if not an intelligence failure, but Rav Kook was the first to admit his mistake. 6 years later, the riots of 1929 occurred, and the Arabs of Hebron slaughtered their Jewish neighbors, and the rabbi's optimism was replaced by fears, great rage, and a clear call not to be deterred and to return to Hebron. As he wrote, if criminals and wicked people have repaid us evil for good, we have only one decisive answer. Jewish Hebron will be rebuilt. And this is an article that's part of this. Rav Arai Shvat, who had the documentary center at Beit Harav, when there was one. Beit Harav has lost all its money, so that's the Ari doesn't work there anymore and stuff. And but anyways, he found some interesting historical documents about these events.
Rabbi,
When
I have a question. So just when he's saying that the Arab and the Jewish national aspirations are in conflict, is he basically saying that ultimately, we rightfully, believe that the land of Israel should be ours, but that doesn't mean that we want to exclude Arabs from it. But their national aspirations is that obviously the land should be theirs, but that there shouldn't be Jews in it. Like, is that a fair, essential breakdown of the
That's
conflict
what they would
there?
have preferred. That's what they wanted. Yes. That they don't
Right.
want Jews here, and they tried to prevent it as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so, but here it says what happened when Rav Kook found out about, I guess, the 1929 riots, and 69 people were killed. And also, it was very horrible because he sent the yeshiva there a few years before that to go settle Hebron, and then many of them got massacred. So then when he found out about it, the first moments, he went to the yeshiva hall at Beit Rav Kook, and he turned to his students with a trembling voice. Those of you who feel themselves possessed of strength, join the defenders in fighting the wild mob. We don't have time. Go right now and fight them if you have the strength. So whoever can, to rifles. Get your rifle and go. And whoever cannot, Tehillim, Psalms. The rabbi himself hurried to leave the Beis Medrash and announced to one of his prominent students, Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Charlap, I am going to join the battle. He was 64 years old at that time, and he passed away 5 years later, 6 years later. I'm going to join the battle to be with the defending fighters. If the Mufti, here's a reference to the
Wow.
Mufti, if the Mufti is there, well, we, all the rabbis, must also be there. If the Mufti is there sending his people out to war, we rabbis must be also out with the defenders. Shall our brothers
Wow.
fight for us while we just sit here and wait?
Let,
And
can we
then
let's take Robert, can we just let's take a moment and because that's I've never heard that statement before, and that's one of the I mean I've been learning rap cook for a while. That's really quite amazing. That's awesome. I mean that to me speaks to his mentality. It speaks to what he would have been like today. I mean I have to think about it for a while, but if you can
well,
extrapolate that to
it was also very clear as soon
yeah,
as Israel got formed, Tzvi Yehuda and Rev Charlap and Tzvi Yehuda were running Beit Arav when Israel got formed, and they became very clear that every student has to go in the army. There's not a you can't learning Torah is not an excuse to not go to the army, and the army service was part of all his students for Israel
that's an
army
amazing.
service.
We'll move on. So I don't mean to take over the class, but like that's just the fact that he was trying to go there and provide that leadership and also that statement,
He
whoever can
did
defend
provide
should
the
fight.
leadership. He did send
No,
people to go and fight.
no, I know. I'm just saying, and then that statement itself, whoever can to rifles, whoever cannot to Psalms. It's like I've never heard that before. It's an amazing statement.
So then what
And
happened though, after he said that, Rev Harlap came up to him and he convinced him to not do that for himself personally. Don't go out there and fight, and to act with discretion. For if he went with the defenders, if he went with his soldiers, the British and the Arabs would claim that just like the Mufti is inciting the Arabs, the rabbis are inciting the Jews. So Rav Kook agreed to that request, but at the same time authorized in writing the removal of 10 rifles hidden in a school to stop the Arab charge on Jewish neighborhoods in Jerusalem. Yeah, that we have to release these rifles and use them. He also he also brings testimony from Rabbi Shlomo Ranan, Rav Kook's grandson, who was murdered in Hebron by a terrorist 22 years ago before this article, so it's 27 years ago. According to his testimony, Rav Kook instructed the Haganah after the riots to strike Arabs as revenge and deterrence. Nevertheless, Rav Kook stuck even then to his principled position, distinguishing between the Arabs, the rioters, and the Arabs as a whole. Finally, Rav Kook says, I know clearly that the Arab people in general and even the greater part of the Arab people of the land of Israel, they are full of grief and shame for the evil deeds done by the small part of them through the guilt of their inciters, the mufti. And we hope that the same tradition of way and peace and reciprocity will defeat all the schemes of lies and deceit, impurity and malice, which agitators and bloody men, when men of blood, wish to spread in the midst of the land in order to kick all the Jews out to its detriment and shame. And then they tell an interesting story. In the second and third decades, 1920s, 30s, despite the development of the national conflict with the Arabs, Rav Kook tried to conduct himself through peaceful ways with local Arab leaders and also with the Arab leadership in the region. In recent years, more of these connections have been revealed. The most significant of them is likely the connection between Rav Kook and Emir Faisal, the son of Hussein, king of Hijaz. Would that have been, was that Jordan? Rav Kook was in contact with Chaim Weizmann, Winston Churchill, Lord Balfour, as part of the diplomatic contacts surrounding the Balfour Declaration. And the research assumption is that he also supported the Faisal-Weizmann agreement signed in London. I guess which was an agreement between the early Zionists and here it describes what it is. Weizmann signed on behalf of the Zionist movement and Faisal in behalf of the Hijaz kingdom. Was the Hijaz kingdom the Arab? Was it Jordan?
Jordan. Hijaz was Saudi Arabia.
That's what I thought. I wondered. Okay,
it was western region of Saudi Arabia, covering Mecca, Medina, and
Jordan.
That area. Bordered by the.
That makes sense.
Faisal then became leader of Syria for a very short time until the French kicked him out, and then the British made him king of Iraq afterwards.
Okay, good. Thank you. So then he said this agreement, the Faisal-Weizmann agreement, was supposed to regulate relations between the Zionists and the United Arab Kingdom that was headed by Faisal with the vision of Greater Syria, which was supposed to be established following World War I and the Arab Revolt. The main points of the agreement included Arab recognition of the Balfour Declaration and a Jewish promise to assist in the development of the Arab state. Faisal disavowed this agreement after the French and English mandates were applied to the region and the Arab demand for independence was not accepted. 2 years after the agreement was signed, in the summer of 1921, Rav Kook bestowed blessings on behalf of the chief rabbinate upon King Faisal on the occasion of his ascending to the throne of the king of Mesopotamia, Iraq. And Rav Kook wrote to the king about the importance of shared life and coexistence between the children of Ishmael and Yitzchak. The relation between the rabbi and the king continued even a decade later. In 1931, Faisal arrived for a visit to Jerusalem, and he invited Rav Kook as the official representative of a Jewish community in the land. However, Faisal's visit took place on the Shabbat. Rav Kook couldn't accept the invitation, but on Sunday, the king surprised the rabbi by coming to his home. The king, we don't have any record of that at Beit Rav. I can't believe it. Faisal went to Beit Rav, and he explained that if the rabbi could not come to him due to the commandments of his God, well, Faisal will come to visit him. And Rav Kook blessed the king on the occasion of His Majesty's appearance in the holy city, and he wished him that with his appearance, the blessing of peace will appear from the source of blessings from the merciful God upon all the inhabitants of our holy land. Another leader with whom Rav Kook maintained a correspondence was the mayor of Jerusalem and the member of the Arab Higher Committee, Rajib Najashibi. There were 3 or 4 main families in the Arab Jerusalem. Najashibi was one of them. The Al-Husseini family is another one. There's like 3 or 4 that were the main ones. And at that point, Najashibi was the mayor, and Rav Kook and him corresponded a little bit on municipal matters. And Najashibi invited Rav Kook to the Nabi Musa, the Navi Moshe celebrations. Only 2 years after the ceremonies there, led by Hamin al-Hujayni, resulted in the bloody riots of 1920. These are the first riots that the Mufti was involved in, the Nabi Musa riots in the 1920. But he's saying Najashibi invited Rav Kook to those in 1922. But this time Rav Kook couldn't attend because of his health. He thanked Najashibi and he wrote to him how happy he was to see how the great and honorable Arab people know how to respect the name of the man of God, who is the messenger of Hashem to bring down from heaven the great light of blessing of peace, justice, truth, and love, to illuminate our human beings on their way to earth for their good in this world to come. That's what Rav Kook wrote to a letter to the Arab mayor of Jerusalem in 1922. Another letter that Rav Kook wrote that was uncovered by another person, it says here, it might embarrass many of his students today. These students, they distance themselves from any connection, even polite, with Christianity and its leaders. But here, it's a New Year's greeting that Rav Kook sent to the Anglican Bishop of Jerusalem, George Francis Graham Brown, a clergyman with, sorry.
Is this your side? It's coming up.
I mixed up, sorry. Anyways, let's just catch it on. Is a clergyman with academic education, history, economics, lecture in theology, and Rav Kook wrote him a letter. And Graham Brown, who's the Anglican bishop, he became famous for not standing idly by during the 1929 riots. He defended the Jews of the Talpiot neighborhood with his students at great peril. And towards the Jewish Rosh Hashanah of 1932, he sent Rav Kook a Shana Tova blessing, and the Rav replied in his own handwriting, I hereby bless His Eminence with great success for the benefit of his flock and their happiness, and I am certain, God willing, that all the feelings of friendship and respect which were always practiced between the chief rabbinate and the Anglican bishopric will be continued in its majestic honors for the days coming upon us for good. And then the author of the article says, it's hard to imagine a chief rabbi today blessing a Christian clergyman for this benefit of his flock and their happiness. And then he says, Rav Kook's balanced approach regarding the Arabs is evident in those years, also in his attitude towards the Arab individual. Not once did he recommend assistance to Arabs who acted for peace between Jews and Arabs. I'm not sure if that's meant to be not only once or not. Let's see. In January 1931, he turned to Colonel Kirsch, the head of the political department, and asked, not just once, he recommended assistance to Arabs who acted for peace between Jews and Arabs a number of times. In 1931, he asked that they financially assist Yassif Bey Haddad, who was known for his work in favor of peace. A similar recommendation was given to Zahid Shaheen, author of a book, Secrets Yet Unknown, who wished to make peace between the people in the land of Israel. According to the testimony by a certain writer, one of the founders of Brit Shalom, the Covenant of Peace Association, Rav Kook, personally donated tzedakah over the years to Arabs who turned to him requesting help. Arabs came up to him, he gave them tzedakah. On other occasions, Rav Kook refused a recommendation not to purchase roosters for kaparot from Arabs after the 1929 riots. After the 1929 riots, we'll boycott the Arab chickens, the roosters, for the kaparot ceremony. Rav Kook refused to participate in that. And despite enthusiastically supporting the principle of Hebrew labor, Rav Kook clashed with the management of the Mikvah Israel Agricultural School and later with the farmers of Pardes Chana, who, because of that same principle, opposed employing a Shabbos goy, a non-Jew, to milk their cows on Shabbos, and they preferred to employ a Jew, even though it involved desecrating the Shabbos. And in this matter, Rav Kook clarified, it is impossible for a Jewish settlement not to find within itself a few Gentiles. The laws of our Holy Torah are certainly incomparably stronger than all the fabricated customs that people have made up for themselves. I guess he means the laws of, getting a non-Jew. You can tell if a non-Jew in the right thing, you can tell them they can do it. But the customs here, we have a few Jews who can do it on the thing. That's what he's referring to, what they were doing. And also facing the people of Nachlat Yehuda, he insisted, even if it's necessary sometimes to use the temporary labor of a Gentile, this is not an insult to our religion. There's nothing wrong with it. One of the lesser known details is Rav Kook's support for the utopian peace movement, unity and peace movement. Let's see what he says. This movement aspired to world peace between individuals, parties, and natures in the spirit of Judaism. And Rabbi Ephrati, one of the founders of Nes Tziona, was among the close students of Rav Kook. He lived in his house for a while and was in close contact with him. And at least twice Rav Kook blessed him in writing for his activities and vision, which sought to perfect the world under the sovereignty of Hashem and to reorganize human society in a cooperative manner. The detailed vision, there was a whole a utopian peace movement. The Rabbi Ephrati, it was called, a unity and peace movement, Achdut v'Shalom. You can look it up and so on. And Rav Kook's support for this movement fit in well with his approach to Islam. And Rav Kook saw in Islam a religion branched off from Judaism. It's also closer to Judaism and Christianity. And despite their flaws, Rav Kook believed it's going to be the religion whose believers will recognize the superiority of Judaism. And he notes that Rav Kook sparingly refers to the Arabs. And let's see. You know what? Let's stop here. It's almost time, rather than try to rush the last part of this, because it's a very instructive article. The person who did a lot of. But listen, the blessing is that we'll really be able to manifest with all our so-called enemies, to show that we can really work together to perfect the world under the sovereignty of Almighty El Shaddai and to reorganize human society in a cooperative manner of Achdut for Shalom. So that really is what we're here to do, and we have to make sure that nobody stops us from doing that. And may our learning and yearning bring immediate victory to Tzva Haganah Israel, and healing to all the wounded, comfort to all the mourners, and elevation to all the holy souls. I mean, there was like 2 funerals yesterday, today, and it continues on. And may we be blessed to be able to make the transformation of transforming all the dark into the light. V'imhera be'amenu v'nomar.
Amen.
Amen.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's that. The person who wrote that article did a lot of research, and I'm really glad to be able to learn some of it, because some of it I knew, some of it I didn't, and what tomorrow we'll look at more things specifically. Once the Mufti came into power, Rav Kook and the Mufti were the 2 opposing voices, and there's some public statements that Rav Kook made about what the Mufti was doing, saying and doing, and like that. So, and with your permission, I was for Sfirata Omer, and then we can. Rabbi Joe, you still there? Do we have I guess today we had a report on the world situation.
Report on the world situation.
But first, let me just make the Sfirata Omer first, just to make sure I have the right day. Yeah. Aleph, yeah. Wait, yesterday was 17.
Yes.
Right, okay. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu as Sfirat HaOmer.
Amen.
Amen.
היום 18 יום, שהם 2 שבועות ו4 ימים לעומר, נצח שבתפארת. So may our Tiferet come forth forever.
Amen.
So is it going to happen? So now back to the world situation. Well, actually, you understand this battle, it's the same battle, Rav Kook, that's the same battle.
Can I just make a comment that following what Nathanael said, I think that the thing that the Muslims didn't accept was being subservient to others, or being subservient to Jews. They didn't mind living with Jews so long as they were dominant. So there was an organization called Brit Shalom, which you mentioned, which in that text. And Brit Shalom was one of the 2 foremost leaders of Brit Shalom were Martin Buber and Franz Rosenzweig. And because they didn't advocate a Jewish state, and much of the left wing didn't advocate a Jewish state, they advocated a binational state, an Arab Jewish